My name is Jean Myungjin Roland. 저의 한국 이름은 강명진. And I am a prosecutor. I've been in the district attorney's office for 23 years. And I have prosecuted many different crimes, starting with misdemeanors, domestic violence, stalking, elder abuse, sexual assault, child abuse. And I am currently the head of the General Felony Trial Unit, where I see the majority of the felony crimes that are happening in San Francisco. And I see how they are being handled in court every day. So I am here because I want change in San Francisco, and I want accountability in the courtroom. So that's my background of who I am. So a Superior Court judge manages cases and they oversee the courtroom. So what that means is that everyone who comes into their courtroom, they should give them respect. They should hear all of the voices that are coming into the courtroom, and they look at evidence. So Superior Court judge is someone who the attorneys will present evidence to, and then the judge has discretion. So discretion comes about different ways. The first one is going to be at the arraignment courtroom. So at an arraignment, that's the first appearance when a defendant comes into court. And at that appearance, the attorneys will make their arguments, the judges will hear those arguments, and then they look at different factors, and then they determine whether or not the defendant is going to be released back into the community or if they are going to remain in jail in custody. So a judge will decide that. Another time when a judge has discretion is at a preliminary hearing stage. So at the preliminary hearing stage, the judge will decide what evidence is included, what evidence is excluded, and then they hear the arguments from the attorneys, and they decide which of those cases will move up to the trial phase. And a preliminary hearing judge will also hear whether or not a defendant will be released or a defendant will be remain in custody. And then one other common area where judges have discretion will be sentencing. So after trial, the judge will weigh the evidence. They have heard all of the testimony, and then they decide what is the appropriate sentencing for the crime and the defendant. So those are basically the jobs of what judges do. The judge also has the judge not only looks over criminal, but they will also look at civil, and they look at dependency and juvenile delinquency proceedings too. So Superior Court in San Francisco judge will look at everything in all of those types of cases. So no, so during the whole case, you can actually come in front of multiple different judges. So the arraignment judge will be a different judge to the preliminary hearing judge, trial judge, they can all be different. So judges can hear different cases. And so Superior Court in San Francisco, there are 52 judges. So I think I'm going to start that answer with saying that there are these judicial canons or judicial rules where I cannot talk about certain things by law, right? So for example, I cannot talk about my opponent directly. I can't say anything negative about my opponent, but what I can say is what made me want to do this is because I see so many different types of crimes out in San Francisco, right? And for example, my mother does not want to walk down the street by herself, right? Because she's scared. my own feelings is, you know, I'm always scared. Every time my high schooler wants to ride the bus, right? And many people in the community have shared same type of concerns, right? Many people are scared. So when people are afraid to be on the streets of San Francisco, there's something wrong. And as I look around, there are definitely changes that can be made, and judges have a lot of power and discretion to be able to look towards an eye for public safety. And it's important that judges look at these, it's important that the judges will look at public safety and then be able to make these decisions and determinations. It is. Right, and I mean there are other types of factors, right? So I think every person who walks into court should have respect, right? A judge should respect every person who walks into court.
Yeah.
A judge should listen to all of the voices that are in the courtroom, including the victim. So these are all things that we want to encourage, and just make sure that judges are also doing these things too. Yeah, so for me, I think that I've been doing this job, this exact same job, for 23 years, right? And that is exactly what I do as a prosecutor, right? So I have reviewed thousands of cases. So in those cases, I am looking not only at the case, but I'm talking to every single, person that's involved in those cases. So I may be looking at like talking to the police, talking to the victims. I have moments when I'm talking to the defense attorneys too, right? So we're trying to find as much information as I can when I make tough, hard decisions. And those decisions are basically, are we going to further prosecute the case? Are we going to charge the case? Are we going to discharge the case? So these are all hard decisions that I've been making every day for the last 2 decades. This is what a judge should be doing. Right. So judges absolutely have to be impartial. They have to look at the evidence. They have to weigh the evidence. But I think what is important is that having that experience as a basis, then to be able to see what you have is a qualification, and it's just experience that you don't gain just from becoming a judge. You're looking at all of this, or I'm looking at all of this based upon everything that I've also done in the past. Those skills are skills that I would use as a judge. You also have to have compassion. So I spent 8 years in juvenile. And juvenile is a place where we are looking for collaboration. I'm working with judges, I'm working with the defense attorneys, I'm working with the programs. Every single offender has their own life trauma, and their own life experiences. So when you look at the whole picture, that's what a judge should be doing. You have to balance.
Right.
You balance a defendant's rights, you balance the victim's rights. You're also balancing public safety. So when you combine everything, that is the qualities that a judge should have. And I think that I have dealt with a lot of victims who are Asian, right? There is a lot of Asian victims in the city, and I have spoken to them. I think the hardest part is that many of our Asian victims are monolingual speaking, right? They do not speak English fluently, and so we are always using translators. So I think having grown up with monolingual grandparents who only speak Korean, that's how I learned Korean, and being raised also with parents who are not fully fluent in English, it really helps me be more patient and understanding when we're dealing with monolingual speaking victims. So I do not think that if I were to be a judge, that those are influences that would bias me. I think that those are actually experience that will help me as a judge, because I have a better understanding of monolingual speaking victims and families and family members. So I have that experience and life experience to have that patience and to also be able to understand what those needs are for monolingual speaking victims, like Asian victims. Yeah. So let me start with the last question. So this is actually for citywide. So there's no district. It's for all of San Francisco. Yes. And then as far as your first question, I will say this. So when people see me, they see an Asian woman, right? So they expect me to be quiet, right? To be submissive, to take a back seat, right? And I know that that is not me, right? I have prosecuted and I have stood up against gang members. I have stood up against career criminals. I have had threats against my life as a prosecutor. I have had defendants lunge at me while I've been in court. And, you know, those are those experiences that I have had while being an Asian woman. These are the biases that I've had to deal with and struggle with as I've gone through the DA's office, as I've gone through my life. So when I think about these experiences, it actually only makes me stronger, right? Because as an Asian woman, I have to do more, right? I mean, my mother is an extremely strong person, right? And I always have to do more so that I can rise up to face all of those challenges. I mean, even now, right? When I look at what is happening with the names that the city. I'm sorry, this is just distracting. Okay, okay, so. So when I look at what's happening in the city right now, right, even in the campaign, they are not able to, they're challenging the use of Asian character names, right? So that is actually something that is happening right now. And how does that impact all of the Asians who have to prove our name and prove our identities, right? So that is actually going to be an interesting development to see what's going to happen, right? I mean, there are challenges saying that I cannot use my Asian name in the ballot, right? And that should just not be the case, right? So proving my identity as an Asian is something that is at issue right now. So I feel like we're always dealing with challenges through all parts of my life and this campaign. Right now, it's being challenged. So,
and you mean other candidates complain about it?
Well, there are other candidates who are Asian. And so if you think about the Asian candidates who are born in America, but they were raised in traditional households where they are being called by their Asian name by their parents all the time. But now they're saying if you cannot prove your identity or having used that Asian name in some sort of an official document, then you cannot use that in the elections or in your campaign. You know, that's an issue that I think that we will have to look at. It's not, for me, I would not say it's a disadvantage, but for me, I just find the whole principle of it that they are stripping me of my Asian heritage and identity, right? So even putting the campaign aside, what they are telling me is that I have to prove my identity as an Asian culture, you know, traditionally, and that just does not seem right. Yeah, I don't know what more can be done. I know that there will be a press conference with the news next Wednesday at 10 o'clock in City Hall. And I know that there will be media presence there. If you wanted to come out there, then you can hear how this is impacting a lot of different people in this campaign and election. But right now, I think everyone is just, they want to have their voice said, right? I mean, I was trying to explain the the problem to my mother last night, and she could not understand. She kept saying, well, this is your name. And I said, I know it's my name, but I have to prove that this is my name. And she just really could not understand why. Why is it that we have to prove our identity? Like, I have to prove my Korean name just so that it can be in some sort of published publication. You know, it does not make any sense. And like growing up, I mean, I have, my parents have always used my Korean name. I've always been Youngjin, right? And it's just, it's my name. So when somebody says, oh, I can't use that, it just seems very wrong. Again, it just seems wrong. It is, and I'm proud of that, right? I'm proud of my culture, right? My ethnicity. So I want to be able to, you know, have that representation. Like, I want to be able to represent that I am Korean American, and I'm running in this campaign and this for a leadership position in the city, right? So my goal is really, I want to inspire the Asian community to be more involved, right? To be more involved in government, to be more involved in everything that we do in San Francisco, so that we have that representation, right? For me, I'm going to tell my story. It is interesting because I feel like I have been a voice for victims for so long, and I'm going to voice this for myself because this is impacting me. So aside from the campaign, you know, this is just my identity as a Korean American. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think, so we need more representation in San Francisco by Korean Americans, by Asian Americans in leadership positions. So especially when it comes to the judicial level, we are underrepresented. We are underrepresented. So we have very few Asian judges on the bench, and we want representation. We need representation so that our community can also be represented by the same makeup that is in San Francisco, especially when it comes to Asian women. We have extremely few Asian women on the bench right now, and it's important that we raise the awareness of having more Asian females on the judicial bench, right? And that's what I want to do. I want to inspire everybody who is going through law school, or perhaps going, you know, just even as a child, wondering what they're going to do in their future. And having that type of representation for our community is something that is important, and I'm hoping that I will be able to inspire that kind of goals. It's important to stand up, right? And it's important to stand up for the right things, right? No matter how hard. And this is hard. This is very hard, but it's an important way that we can help our community. You know what? My children inspired me because I see how they're growing up, and I am so proud of my children, and the fact that they want to go out and do so many things in the world. And to do that, they're literally walking around San Francisco after school, and I want to make sure that they are safe, so that whatever they want to do, they can do it in a safe environment, because they are so smart. And I know I'm their mother, but they are so smart, and they are so polite, and they always think of others, right? So they volunteer their time, they always help grandma all the time. And so I want to make this world a good place for them. So that's what drives me.
Yeah.
So my name is Jean Myungjin Roland, and I am running against Patrick Thompson for Superior Court Judge, seat number 13. And I am asking for your support and your vote on March 5th 2024. Thank you.